All right, hello everybody. Welcome back to episode 5 of the Performance Pod. Today we have Victor Cruz on here. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me on.
So, we're going to get into a little pre of who Victor is before we get into this, so you guys know who he is. So, Victor Cruz went to Rowan College for 4 seasons. Your senior year, you go on to bat 327. You hit 2 homers, which gives you the ability to transfer to East Stroudsburg University for 2 grad seasons, which they're one of the best Division II programs in the country. Your last season, you bat 347 with 17 doubles and 39 RBIs. The 17 doubles I saw, and I was like, wow. Like, that's a lot to hit in a season. And then moving on to that, after your college career, you work at Cressy Sports Performance. I believe, did you work there or as an intern?
Yeah, so I had quite the evolution at Cressy. I first trained there after my junior year, so that was COVID. And then after that, so right after I finished the College World Series at Rowan, I interned there for a summer. And then just last off season, so this time last year, which was 2023, 2023, I think, I worked there seasonally, so throughout the course of the off season. So I kind of been there for 3 different stints in my life.
Oh, okay. See, I couldn't find the exact of that, but that makes sense.
Mhm.
And then moving on with that, work as a strength and conditioning coach for the Tampa Bay Rays organization now. And then we were talking last night, and I had to throw this in. Being in your 6 years of college baseball, going to a regional all 6 seasons, 2 super regional appearances, 1 College World Series appearance, and then at Rowan, you won the conference one time, and then at East Stroudsburg, you won the regular season conference for the PSAC, again, one of the best conferences, Division II conferences in the country. And I think the biggest thing on this list is broke the single season win record at both of your schools. They call that a common denominator. So,
Whoa, whoa. I
right?
can't I can't take all the credit, but that is a good intro. And there's been a few times now where I'll come and speak, podcast, whatever, and people will go through my college baseball career, and it's like listening to them talk, I'm like, holy cow! Like I can't believe looking back that yes, I had some success. Honestly, to be honest with you, individually, I was never the most talented, and a lot of like my college accolades are not individual; they're team accolades. But man, we had a lot of success. Credit to a lot of my teammates and my coaches. I won a lot of baseball games in my 6 years.
Well, you had told me you said your record as a college baseball player was like 100. You didn't know the exact, but it was like roughly 170 and 60 or something.
Yeah, something like that. I remember. So I just finished up, and I'm like just editing my resume and stuff professionally. And I'm like, maybe at the bottom of my resume, like, just put like, what was my record? Like, what? How? Because I won a lot of baseball games, and it has to count for something, right? And I did the math, and it was something like we won 170 games over my 6 years. I only lost 60, which is like those are ridiculous numbers, but it just goes to show like when you add that up, it's you added up breaking 2 school win records.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like I think when you going, cause I've been on both sides of it. I've been on like an extremely winning team and a team that wasn't so hot, and just going to the park every day or like whatever it is, it's just way more fun. And like it's just a better experience when you're winning.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Winning is fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's no
100%.
doubt about that. And I think an important thing maybe we could talk about as we go is like success and winning leaves clues. There's always stuff you could take away.
I like that. Yeah. So we're gonna get into first question here. Talk a little bit as we're talking college career. Talk a little bit about your college career, your experience, and the journey, like what you learned. Honestly, hit anything that you want to hit into.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll give you kind of my spiel. My first memories in life were playing baseball with my pops in the backyard. I was born and raised in New Jersey. Ended up playing high school baseball, public high school guy at Westfield High School. Moved on from there, played 4 years at Rowan. Right after Rowan, like I said, I interned at Cressy Sports Performance, which is a facility down in Florida. Eric Cressy is the one who owns that. He is now the director of player health and performance with the New York Yankees. So obviously a pretty big title, but I know him personally, and his character and how good he is at his job matches up with like that type of title. He's an awesome guy and a good mentor of mine. And then after that summer, transferred. So I actually, technically I walked on at East Stroudsburg. I had some communication with the coaching staff coming in, and I had a good senior year at Rowan. But, I didn't really have a spot. They were like, yeah, you could play for the fall, and, we'll kind of see where it goes. So in a sense, I rolled the dice, but I also knew academically, like I wanted to do exercise science graduate program as well as be a graduate assistant strength coach there. It was just a good fit. But baseball was a big one. Like when I was going through that process, I knew I wanted to get a school that might be a fit athletically too. So yeah, technically walked on, and after the first day of fall practice, I remember the head coach, Coach K, came up, he shook my hand, he said, "We're happy to have you." So it only took one day, and that was honestly, it wasn't even because of how good I was. I think it was just because I was smiling the whole time and just running around, yelling at people, not in like a leader or anything like that, just like, man, I'm on a baseball field. And like, I don't know if it's going to work out, but like, this could actually be my last day of practice competitively. So I better fricking enjoy it. And that's pretty much how I lived my last 2 years of baseball. It's like, I want to help these guys, but I want to have a lot of fun. And like, I don't really care what my stats are anymore because I knew at that point I wasn't going to play professionally. I kind of had a career that was boiling. So yeah, that was kind of my journey. And then I guess current, got my foot in the door with the Tampa Bay Rays after my 5th year at East Stroudsburg. Did a seasonal position there over the summer, and then went back to ESU and was a 23-year-old playing against, 18 to 20-year-olds, which it took that long for me to actually finally have individual success in college baseball. And then after my 6th year, kind of just hit the ground running with the Rays. And I've now been with the Tampa Bay Rays as a strength conditioning coach 4th year. In this coming year, I'll be in Double A in Montgomery, Alabama.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't, because prior, well, first of all, that's a great intro, and I think playing the game fun is what makes you better. And obviously, like your last season, you were a dude, and I don't care if you're 23 against the 18-year-olds. It's still hard to, hit 350, and that conference is good, dude. Like, I didn't even mention this prior, so I had kind of how I don't know how I'd found your page the one day, but it was because someone had mentioned to me from my junior college, and we had played against you. So it had to have been your last year in my sophomore year, I believe, that we had played against you, and I didn't even know that. But I remember my freshman year we played ESU, and it was like my first time like seeing college pitching, and I K'd 4 times every single time. And like they weren't throwing like your guys out, they were throwing out like the freshman that we don't know if he's good enough out. So that you guys are really good. There actually a couple of my buddies transferred there from Northampton, and they like it so far. So that's a
Yeah.
good spot.
Yeah, we always had I remember always playing Northampton, and we had Northampton guys, CJ Pachaka, Tommy Dunleavy, um, guys like that who are good friends of mine. CJ, I still talk. CJ, I was just actually visiting him in Florida, a month ago or so. But, yeah, man, I remember. So that's funny you say that because my first college baseball experience, I was a freshman at Rowan. Not my first, but like my first game where I was like, okay, like here it is. Like, this is real. I was a freshman. I got the back end of a doubleheader, a conference doubleheader. I was going to play first base, and we were playing Ramapo. I think it was Ramapo, but we ended up facing a lefty that ended up getting signed that year by the Reds. And you know, I I K'd 3 times, so I didn't get the four. But I think where I might have beat you is I think I saw 9 pitches in my 3 at bats, and I think I swung once. So like it was just like freshman in on the back end, like just at least swing it, like at least at
Yeah,
least swing it, do something. And I didn't do anything. And then I remembered that night, like I ordered a pizza and I was just depressed.
those are
Um,
the worst, but everyone has to go through it. Like it
yeah,
happens at one point in your career, and honestly, it's probably better that it happened that early instead of like later down the line. It's like, all right, I've played this game for 3 years in college now. Why is it happening now?
yeah. Well, I still got those too. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, how was it transition from Rowan to ESU? Like, was it a big jump? Because I mean, the competitive nature of it might be a little bit different, right?
Mhm. Yeah, two. So actually, two. I'd say vastly different programs in the way they're ran, but obviously both successful in their own way. I would say Rowan and Coach Dixon over there. Still keep in contact with those guys. It's more of a more structured, more disciplined. Like we're wearing the same color socks, same color belt, all kinds of stuff to practice, and it's just very structured in that way. Um, and then East Stroudsburg is a little more free flowing, and kind of the philosophy is like we want, at least coaching philosophy is we want the guys to be themselves and be just be the best version of yourself, the type of player and the type of person you are. So practice is a little bit different. The way we go about our week is a little bit different. And there's no right or wrong. We both had success, right? And we were talking about success leaves clues. There's different ways to do things, but they had two different cultures. So that's kind of my take on the big picture.
Yeah.
Smaller picture stuff, just talent wise. Looking back and reflecting, my big thing from D3 to D2, the big jump was the pitching. So, like, I had a lot of guys I played with at Rowan that could play, like position players that could play at East Stroudsburg or that could play Division I baseball. It just didn't happen early on at a high school, and so they ended up having great years at Rowan. And then the pitching was a jump. When we faced a good arm at Rowan, it was 90 plus, and they could land an off-speed pitch, and that was like, okay, like, we got to have a good plan. We got to prep during the week of practice. We know what we're coming up against. And I remember when we were in the College World Series, we faced one of those arms, and we just didn't see him a lot, and he carved us.
Yeah.
Versus at East Stroudsburg, it's like you're facing 90 plus land breaking balls for strikes, every weekend pretty much.
Yeah.
So that was a big jump, and then you just get used to it as you see it more. That's why I'd say pitching's a big jump, D3 to D2. Position players, I think, depending on where you're at, you could have guys like dudes at the D3 level that, like, dang, you could play D1 ball and like be an everyday guy.
Yeah, I completely agree with like, cause I'm in a Division III now, and like some of the infielders I've played with, obviously I'm an infielder, so I probably relate to it more. But like some of the infielders I play with, I'm like, why are they here? But it's like they weren't that good till they were a junior, or whatever that may be. They just like come along a little late and they get missed or whatever it may be. But I think like there's some dudes at the D2 and D3 level that are a lot better than where they should be.
Yeah.
That's the
And
beauty
man,
of
I
it.
think it works out. I think it works out for some guys because, like, they always talk about the recruiting process and go somewhere you could play and develop and this and that. And ultimately, like, if you're a D3 guy and like you don't really have huge aspirations of playing professionally, but you really love the game and you want to play, like, if you go to a D3, you play 4 years, you go to regionals, you go to World Series, you build good friends and good memories. If that was your goal coming into your recruiting process, like, you did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So sometimes you could choose a D1 school and you put yourself out there to do it. And the next thing you know, it's your senior year and like, damn, I've had 20 at bats. Like, what am I supposed to do now? Um, so I think, people, sometimes the grass is greener on the other side, and you just have to take that stuff into perspective, I think.
That's a that's a really good way to put it. Cause like maybe that's what someone's goal and they achieve that. But everyone's goals or whatever they want is different. So you can't like what I've realized is you can't like compare yourself to that guy because he didn't want what you want or whatever. Like everything is separate for every person. So I just think like putting in perspective for each guy is a big part of it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So we'll get into we'll start hitting into we talked college baseball a bit where a lot of your obviously you're extremely knowledgeable in the game of baseball, but also the strength and conditioning realm. And we're gonna get into kind of what you do with the Rays. So like, what is your favorite thing about training with pro guys? I know you worked with like at ESU, you worked with college guys, your teammates probably most of the time. But how is it with the pro guys now?
Yeah, I'd have an evolution, different experiences, different ways I've come up. So I've worked with athletes from elementary, middle school, all the way up into big leaguers. So I have a big perspective on things. What I'd say, what was your question?
So like, kind of what your favorite thing about training the pro players is?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd give you like an overarching thought to start,
Yeah.
which is like when I came up, I I understood at an early age that there's things I could do off the field to get better on the field. And one of the big ways that people think of and that know of is the weight room and strength and conditioning. And there's also mental performance and a lot of other things. But I kind of fell in love with the weight room because I knew it was making me better on the baseball field. And I was always just trying to get better. So I fell in love with it. And now, kind of the way I think about it is I just want to be able to provide athletes with the resource I didn't have, with the guidance I didn't have when it comes to the weight room. And now that I'm learning more and I have more of a knowledge base, it gets really deep and dense and some rabbit holes and some complex ideas. Um, so I've kind of come to figure out like I have an ability now to sift through the rabbit holes and try to come up with something that's just practical for the athlete in front of me. So my big overarching theme is with the athletes I work with now, I just put myself in their shoes, and it's like, if you're really trying to get better, if you're really committed to this thing, with professional baseballers are usually are, I just want to be able to provide them with the resources to get better and to use the weight room to the best of their ability. So that's my overarching thought there.
And I feel like, I mean, I don't know, but and you can answer this. With the pro guys, you probably like working them a little more because they want it a little more. Depending on who I mean, obviously a college guy could want it as much as a pro guy, but like, I feel like most guys at that point really want it and like they're bought into what you're saying to them.
Yeah, there's a natural weeding out process. Like once you get to the professional level, you're just going to get less guys who are like wishy-washy about development. Like those guys have goals. Like those guys want to be big leaguers. Um, and they're committed to that. So yeah, you do get a lot of that weeded out, but there's value in anything, you know, like working with younger guys. Like right now I'm doing some just coaching on the side back home for the off season. And I just had an eighth grade boys lacrosse group yesterday. Total, like I'm going to be in double A next year. I'm going to be working with 25, 30-year-old men that are an injury away from the big leagues. And then last night I'm working with, eighth graders. It's like that perspective. There's a lot of different things going on there, but you could take skills and you could learn things from any type of athlete you're working with. Like for them, for the eighth graders, it's trying to make it fun. It was their first session with me. Like I have to somehow, in like an unprofessional kid type of way, let them know who I am and what I'm about, what I believe in, but let's have fun while we do it. And then with, double A baseball or professional baseball, same concepts, but at the same time, you need to build buy-in and you need to show them your knowledge base and how you make things practical. And it's a little more because you have to give them more, like you have to sell them on the product.
Yeah.
Versus the younger guys, just like, let's make sure we have fun. And you leave this weight room with a smile on your face.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I think for those like those younger kids, they're gonna listen to almost everything you say because of who you are, and they are kind of you telling them who you are, your prior knowledge. But with those pro guys, you have to like develop the relationship more. Is kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree with that. And then there's just, the conversations I can have with a professional baseball player about development, about the weight room and movement patterns and how it translates to the field. Like they want me to talk about those things versus eighth graders don't want me to talk about those things.
Yeah.
They want me to talk about, I don't know. Like we talked a lot about what they had to eat that day because dude, 0 for 4. I had 4 kids, 0 for 4 on having breakfast yesterday. So public service announcement to my young athletes: if you want to gain weight, if you want to get better, and if you know nutrition is important, then how are you skipping breakfast? It's like
Real.
get
That's
your
real.
priorities in line. I know it's tough, but build a system and get some freaking eggs in you one time.
That's a good one. Okay, so then we're gonna move on to what's one of like the most important things you like to focus on, like with your baseball players. And I'm glad you hit on the lacrosse realm of you saying you worked with some lacrosse players because you've probably worked with sports other than baseball. And what I kind of work around is baseball, but I think just in general, what do you focus on with your athletes? And then when it comes to baseball, what's a little more specific type?
Yeah, I'm big on the foundation. I know people use that term a lot. So you have the analogy, right? Can't build a big house if you don't have the solid foundation. I believe in that. I'll give you some details and some of my ideas on what that actually means. For me, a foundation is a good base of relative strength or max strength overall. However you want to think about strength, but I think it's a little bit more particular when you make it relative to your body weight because everybody's a different frame and size. So you want to have a base level of strength because strength has all kinds of downstream benefits to other abilities, whether it be power, speed, injury prevention. Strength has a ton of downstream. So we want to make sure we get super strong. Secondly, movement quality. So like, for example, you should be able to move in 3 planes of motion. So like up, down, side to side, and rotationally at a really high level. Movement quality is like form, moving in different movement patterns. I want to make sure I'm checking all those boxes in different planes of motion. And I also want to make sure that I have a really good level of relative strength. If I do those 2 things, I know my athlete is in a good position to at least gain baseball skills on the field with their baseball coaches. Right? It just puts them in a better position to like be able to understand hip hinge, to be able to understand where I want to get to at ball release, because they have fundamental patterns that we've worked on with load and velocity to then, do their baseball work.
Yeah, that you answered that perfectly. So kind of moving into, so obviously I said you've worked with many different athletes. So what would be kind of your favorite athlete that you've worked with? Because I know you've worked with some pro guys, and it doesn't even have to be a pro guy. It could be someone Eddie Strasberg, but kind of like who is the guy you're like I love, like he loves doing this, and I love doing it for him. And this is kind of hard because you're gonna say a name, and then someone else is gonna say, "Oh, what about me?"
Uh, 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 uh. So my eighth grade boys lax group yesterday asked me the same question. And what I told them was what I don't care as much, like, although I just talked about strength and the foundation. I don't care what the person lifts. I don't care what the person necessarily looks like in the weight room. Like, that's my job and that's important. What I really care about is they bring a consistent energy every day. They're disciplined. They're committed to a long-term goal. So like athletes like that we could really grow something long-term. Those are the athletes that I like to work with. And I can't give you a specific name, but just know there's a lot of them in the
Yeah.
Tampa Bay Rays organization. And then this is probably my number one, and this is going to be crazy. My women's basketball team at East Stroudsburg University, when I was a graduate assistant strength coach, so I spent 2 years there. At this point in my career, they're probably my favorite group because I failed. I failed a lot. I didn't know what I was doing. I had the Cressy experience, but at some point you got to learn by fire. And I did a lot of stuff wrong. And I remember our first year we had a few season-ending injuries. And it's hard. You can't always trace injuries back to the weight room and the things you're doing, but that was what it was. And I knew I had to make an adjustment. So I made an adjustment going into year two, and I used a different programming scheme. And whether it's from me or not, that happened. I made a change and it fixed. That's just on my end. There's so many other variables, right?
Yeah.
But that was a really cool learning experience, big picture wise, to learn about how I should do things as a strength coach. So without them really knowing, they allowed me to fail, learn from my mistakes, make adjustments, fail, learn from my mistakes, make adjustments. So it was pretty much 2 years of growth as a coach. And they were a super committed group. So they helped me a ton.
That's awesome. Yeah, like controlling the controllables almost in like the realm of like your first year switch because there's so many. Like I guess leading into that, like do you ever feel like when someone gets hurt, like it's not your fault because there's so many variables, but when you're doing your work with them, it's like I am controlling what I control and I'm gonna do everything I can at the best ability so I don't let that athlete get hurt or I don't let them. There's a million different things. So I just think like doing what you can do the best possible is the way for you to be successful at what you do.
Yep. Yeah, that's well said. Maybe this is a hot take for some, but working at professional sports, you have a lot of, departments all overseeing athlete development, keeping guys healthy. And it's in any setting, but when a guy gets hurt, it's like, I've taken the mindset that, okay, I'm going to take ownership of this, whether it's my fault or not. I don't care. I'm going to take ownership. What did I do? What happened? Now, how can I make the adjustment to make it better? I think some people, it's just human instinct to point a finger, to play the blame game. No matter what happens, when an athlete under my care, or I've touched an athlete in any way, and I have to think about their injury, I'm going to think about it and I'm going to try to make it better. And sometimes it works out in the long run, sometimes it doesn't, but that's kind of my learning and my growth process. Shout out Jocko Willink, Extreme Ownership. I don't know if you know
No, I
Jocko at
haven't.
all, but that's been a big theme for me throughout the past few years is extreme ownership, and no matter what happens, it's like, okay, how can I get better from this? That's my take on that one. It's a good point though.
So kind of I want to talk into um, obviously everyone should go check out your Instagram. You post a lot of like good information on there, and things that you're doing. And you being the strength coach, you're healthy yourself, and you try to, you're big into that realm. So I want to talk a little bit about you more than the athletes that you work with. And I'm a major like a sleep guy. I love getting good sleep. I think it's a big thing, and you probably preach this to your athletes as well. But are you big? Like, how is your sleep? I always ask this question. How's your sleep, and what do you do to make it better?
Yeah, I'll start with I kind of have two seasons in my life. One is the baseball season, one's the off season, just like when you're playing,
Mhm.
except I'm doing it as a coach now. So those two things are different. My sleep schedules are a little bit different depending on which season I'm in, and I kind of have to create new routines, definitely new sleep routines for each season that I'm in. I would say right now my sleep is pretty good. It's not where I want it to be, but I did just get a Whoop. I know you're a Whoop guy. I did just get a Whoop for Christmas. So I haven't had one for a few years. So it's cool being back on that. I actually listened to your sleep pod that you came out with recently, and I think all that stuff's good. When you talk about, making it pitch dark, having the room cold, um, being cautious about your nutrition before you go to sleep, all that stuff is really good tools. For me personally, I actually just got a pair of blue light glasses, which was a big investment for me, but I'm stoked on them. So like every time before I go to bed, I'll get home and put the blue light glasses on. And at this point, I'm doing a lot of computer work, like late before bed or sending text messages and things like that. So I don't know just yet. Give me a few weeks, I can get back to you on like how effective they've been because I have the Whoop tracking, right, objectively. So we'll see if that helps at all. But I think you cover a lot of good stuff in your pod, man. Trying to align with circadian rhythms. Ideally wake up with the sun, and then try to start to settle down as the sun sets. I think that stuff's really important. Andrew Huberman does a great job of talking about circadian rhythms, getting morning sunlight. Um, so there's a lot of tools out there. I do my best at trying to incorporate them, but just like anybody, I'm human and I'm not perfect, but I try to do my best.
Yeah, that's what I've learned. Like not being the perfect ground, but doing the best you can. And like ignorance is bliss when it comes to certain things, because when you don't know, and but once you know, like I feel like you have the ability to change things. And two things hitting on what you said. One, you got to join my Whoop group now, because I got actually one of your former ESU teammates is in it.
Okay.
I forget his name, but he joined it the one day because I was talking to him like you got to join it. So you got to get in the Whoop group because I keep like there's a couple of my teammates that I've put on it, and I track like I see their sleep like you didn't sleep good last night, like what were you doing, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And then along with that, I want to get the blue light glasses. So I'm big. I kind of yeah, I touched on it on there, but I do red light on my phone. Like so, there's a way like you mentioning on your computer late at night. I found a way to put on my computer that my computer turns to like red light at night, so it takes out that blue light effect. But I don't think it would be more when you have the blue light glasses. I need to get a pair of those.
I don't, I honestly, when it comes to stuff like this, like where you get like a lot of science gets involved, man, I refer to Andrew Huberman. I love his stuff. So that's what I ended up getting blue light glasses from Roca, which is a company that partners with Huberman. And yeah, man, they're sweet. But to your point, yeah, I assume when it's around your eyes, it's just covering more and you have better coverage in terms of blocking blue light. But if you don't have them, then the next best step would, yeah, be putting blue light, settings on your laptop or your phone.
I like Huberman's. I mean I listen to most of his stuff. His podcast. I love listening to his podcast.
Yeah. If I can make a comment, because I think everybody at this point, at least that's into this stuff, knows about Huberman. Like, this is my thing with like podcasts and books these days. Like, if you're listening to it, it's like, oh, like he threw a lot of information at me and like that was smart. So, like, maybe I got smarter because I listened to it. Like, that's not how it works. Like, how it works is like, I listen to the podcast and read the book. And then afterwards, I think, what in that book or in that podcast can I take right now to use in my life? And like I've taken blue light from Huberman. I've taken a bunch of learning tools, like when I do work sessions, trying to use active recall and things like that. So like that's just my tip of advice because we got into Andrew Huberman is like whenever you're listening to dense stuff or trying to learn something, always think afterwards like what's practical, like what can I take, and then look back, keep reflecting years later. For example, Jocko Willink and Extreme Ownership. Like I can look back now, years after reading that book, and say like, man, I think about ownership all the time.
Yeah. Like, are you saying like taking what you can take and like doing it right now? Like, what can you actively do right now to help yourself rather than oh I listened to that so now I know what I'm thinking. And I made a video literally before this, and I was gonna tag you in it, and I wish I did. So this morning I was out walking before I was doing this podcast, and I recorded a video. I just posted it, and it was Chris Williamson. You know who Chris Williams is? Chris Williams? Yeah, love his stuff. And I think he repurposed it from somebody else, but it's like the only way to do the thing is doing the thing. So like in the sense of thinking about doing the thing isn't doing the thing. Me telling you I'm going to do this thing isn't doing the thing. And a million other factors, whatever it is, but until you really do the thing, it doesn't matter. And that's like why I started this podcast cuz he was like just do the thing to do the thing. And one day I was listening to his podcast, I went home, set it up, and here I am 5 episodes in and I'm glad I did the thing. So that really like gives perspective on what he says.
Yeah, right. I believe in that, man. Yeah, credit to you. Credit to you, man. You got a nice little start. Chris Williamson's great. Actually, I just bought his energy drinks or his no, his productivity drinks. I think
Oh, that's what that was that I saw in your story.
yeah, yeah. They're maybe the best, maybe my favorite that I've ever had. I've had them all. Bangs, Reigns, Jocko Goes.
Hmm.
Chris Williamson's is cool because clean ingredient profile, like 110, 120 milligrams of caffeine, which isn't crazy, at least for me. Um, and then it's called a productivity drink. I just think that's so cool. Like it's not an energy drink, like anything. Like it's the only thing I've seen labeled as a productivity drink. I'm like, hell
I
yeah.
need that because the placebo effect would be like productivity drink all over
Exactly.
again.
Once I drink it, I have to be productive.
Exactly. I'm gonna have to get those now. So let's move into a couple more questions here. So kind of like your daily habits. Another question I always like to ask because I like to know. Like I think one of my big things I always say is like win the day. Like what can you do to win today or whatever that may be. And I think it's created around habits and doing the right things, whether you want to do them in that point or not. But just even if it's inconvenience at the time. There's another quote I can't think of it. It was in The Power of One More that I read, the book by Ed Milet. But like inconvenience now sucks, but inconvenience sucks more later. Not doing that thing. Again, going back to that. So I just want to know like what are some of the habits that you've created in your day-to-day life?
I think Tony Robbins' quote, I think, probably going to mess it up, is the pain of discipline is better than the pain of regret. So
Yes, I've heard
doing
that.
the hard thing now hurts. But if you look back 20, 30 years from now and you're like, damn, I could have done a lot more, that hurts way more.
Mm.
Um, so that's really good. Daily habits. So, man, I'm always trying to mess. So a big theme in my life is experimentation. Um, I'm big on experimenting with different ideas and different concepts. Right now, what my daily habits and routines look like, which is always changing, is I'm doing 75 hard. So if I'm sure you know, but for some people that don't, 75 hard is a challenge that was created by Andy Frisella, who's the owner of First Form, which is a supplement company. Um, it's pretty hardcore. So it's 75 days straight, 5 different tasks. One is take a progress picture every day. Two is drink a gallon of water every day. Three is two 45-minute workouts, at least 45 minutes in duration, and at least one of them has to be outside. Another one is follow a diet of your choice. And the last one is read 10 pages of a nonfiction book, 10 or more pages of a nonfiction book. So it's these 5 daily tasks. I've completed it. I believe I completed it in 2024 early on. Or no, actually it was 2023 right before Christmas. And yeah, I dropped like 15 pounds. My goal was to like shed body fat and I ended up getting a 6 pack. And that was the first time I ever had a 6 pack in my life. So it was really cool physically, but mentally I was freaking sharp, man. I was like a laser. Like in the middle, towards the end of 75 hard, I was like, bop, bop, problem solve, problem solve, problem solve. That's what it started to feel like. So it was cool to do the challenge and feel the physical and cognitive benefits. And then I got a small group of people I'm doing it with that start on January 1st. So my daily habits revolve around 75 hard. I'm doing those. It's a lot. It's a lot of things on top
Yeah.
of, I'm also going to massage school and I'm also coaching group sessions at night. So pretty much my day is pretty packed. But I'd say in terms of habits and routines, I'm pushing myself pretty hard with 75 hard. And you mentioned the word inconvenience. It is the ultimate inconvenience. It is like so, um, it's so annoying. It's so frustrating to like know you're doing something throughout the day. Like I know massage school is helping my goals and I'm doing that stuff and I know coaching is good for me. But when you're trying to just find time to get two 45-minute workouts and do all this stuff, it makes it really tough. So, to answer your question right now, that's what my routine looks like.
That's a perfect. Those five are a perfect thing to have your day. And I really want to do 75 hard at some point, and this is me just pushing it off because I don't want to do it, but I need to do it at some point. So maybe that's as soon as my college career is over after this next semester, I think the day after we need to start 75 hard.
Yeah, don't get me fired up now because I had these items, like these things that I wanted to do that I just couldn't do because of my baseball career for a long time. So right after my baseball career over, I knocked a few of them off. I did I did Squattober, which I never did as a college baseball player. I did Squattober, I ran a marathon, and I did 75 hard. So those ones were like adding up throughout my baseball career. Like I want to do them, but I just can't because I have to make sure I'm fresh for baseball.
Yep.
And so I'm knocking them off one by one.
Yeah, that's how I feel with the baseball realm. And I don't want to say it's like I don't think tell me what you think. I don't think it's an excuse. I can't do 75 hard. Like it's just not reasonable to like be like I'm gonna do this in a baseball season.
Yeah, like I said, like I had things that I wanted to do that I knew just weren't like if baseball was my number one priority, which just to be clear it was. Like school was second to me. Baseball is number one. And then in grad school they kind of started to mesh and flip a little bit, but baseball is always my number one priority in life. Um, so I just had to, I knew my priorities and I just had to act in line with those. So I knew like 75 hard just wouldn't be optimal to be the best baseball player I could be.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect way to put it. Um, so kind of I got two more questions here. We're going short and long term goals. I feel like you're my previous guests I've had. It's the college baseball guys, and they have goals, and they're all legit guys. But I feel like you're a good guy to ask this question because you're big into this. I mean, like the things we're talking about right now, like Chris Williamson, bounce into the 75 hard, whatever it is. Like we consume and feel, and everything's the same in our realm. So I would love to hear your short and long term goals as a person.
Man, it's hard. Short term wise, I have a change in somewhat a change in career coming in that I'll be in affiliate baseball this year in Double A. Um, so that's an important differentiation in the way my career is going. So I want to make sure, and I've done some, I don't know if you call it a needs analysis, but I've spent some time reflecting and thinking about the position and the different needs and responsibilities that it brings. So I want to make sure I'm very targeted um, in doing my job really well in the new environment I'm going to be in this year. That is definitely one of my short-term goals. Even shorter term than that, 75 hard um, is a big goal of mine to be able to execute that for 75 days. Another short-term goal, and I'm just kind of thinking through. I think it's important to write these things down, but right now I'm just in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Another short-term goal of mine is lost my train of thought. Oh, is to work on my brand and a business outside of like just professional baseball. So you kind of mentioned some of my media content and things like that, and I do remote programming, and I also do group coaching sessions at night here in New Jersey. So, that was a goal coming into this off season was to build some type of a brand and some type of a business where I ultimately had more ability to positively impact more athletes. So those are some things that are going on. And I don't know if I've necessarily written them down. For me, I just spend a lot of time reflecting, like getting off my phone, going out for a long walk, praying if you guys are into faith. I've been doing a lot of that stuff, which allows me to really align my thoughts. So those are my three short term. And there's some other ones. I mean, we won't even have to talk about massage school. Um, so what did I say? I said 75 hard. I said with the new career change coming up, making sure I'm preparing, executing, and adjusting. 3 words: prepare, execute, adjust, and just go through that cycle throughout the course of the year. And the last one was, what was the last one? This is the
Now
one
you
I
got me
forgot to.
blanking too.
Yeah, the last one
Oh
was,
no. But while we're here, I want to say, shout out what your all your Instagram, your YouTube, because I know you have all what your handles are. While I have this, because I'm gonna clip this and throw it out there.
was that the business. So those are my 3 short
Yes,
term.
yes, yes.
Yeah, so that's kind of like off season, short term. Those are, I guess, goals, things I'm aligning my daily actions with to do. Um, long term, long term is interesting, man. With this, I'm 25 years old now. I've been in pro ball for 4 years. I've been doing a lot of travel for the past 4 years. I have just to be, kind of vulnerable and transparent. Like I have a new girlfriend, which is, not easy to manage given the lifestyle that I live, living out of one suitcase. Um, so, long term, like I have some ideas of things I want to do. Some like really crazy ideas, and some more along, the path that I'm going. Um, but I can't give you like a long term, like this is where I want to get,
Yeah.
because at this point with the new change and the new girlfriend and just the way my life has gone, I see a few different avenues I can go in the next few years, and stay tuned with my media and stuff, and we'll see where it ends up. But I do know the present moment and today, and making the most out of today is really important, and that's really where my head's at. Credit to like what you said, like I'm bought in on that. Like today matters.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So that leads right us into the last question. I've said this a lot. I like asking similar questions because I guess for these, it's I want to get the information for other people out there, but I love like learning from the other people. So I'm asking the questions that I like, and end their question every time. What's the book you're reading right now? You're a big book guy, so I even want to say, let's expand the question for you. What book you're reading right now, and what's your top three favorite that you've read that you would suggest to others?
Big reader, man. Um, I have my bookshelf right here behind me. You can't see it. That's well, actually my nightstand. So what I'm reading right now is Principles by Ray Dalio. Um, it's kind of a dense read. It's definitely not a leisure read. Um, but it's something that's been on my list for a while. And I believe in the idea of like these are the principles you should have, whether it be work or life or business. And then whenever a fork in the road, a decision has to be made, you just think about your principles. Like this is what I value, or this is my principle. So it makes my decision easy. Okay, boom, I'm going to do this because I already know from my past experiences and the way I think about things and my values, I can abide by my principle and just go. Um, so Ray Dalio is pretty dense. He was in finance for a long time. And that's what I'm reading right now. I'd say based on probably a lot of the listeners that you'd get, which is like college, high school baseball players in that community, I'm going to recommend two books for my baseball guys. One is The Mental Game of Baseball by Harvey Dorfman, and two is Heads Up Baseball by Ken Revisa. Um, I came across these a long time ago. So Al Leiter, if you guys know who Al Leiter is, Al Leiter played, I believe, 19 years in the big leagues, left-hand pitcher. And he was my coach growing up for a few years, and I got to play with Jack Leiter, who made his MLB debut last year.
Yeah.
So me and Jack, got pretty close during like these photos that maybe you guys see.
Hmm.
Jack's in there, and I got to know him well. And Al pretty much told me about Heads Up Baseball, or excuse me, the mental game of baseball, and referred to it as like the baseball Bible. And like he was in the big leagues for 19 years. If this guy's calling it the baseball Bible, I better listen, right? Those books are about mental performance. They're about goal setting. They're about visualization, positive self-talk, and a lot of different tools that's targeted towards baseball and using the mental side of the game and understanding it. But what I realized was like, helps me with baseball a lot, but like, what about my life? Like, what about setting goals in my life? And what about
Yeah.
like waking up in the morning and going to sleep at night and making sure I'm talking to myself in a positive way? So like what I realized was like, and that's the game of baseball too, with all the failure and all the things that you learn, transfers to life. So for my baseball guys, mental game of baseball, heads up baseball, and I could go a few more. Can I break down a few categories? Let's go
Go ahead,
leadership.
do it. Wait,
Let's go
before you
leader.
hop into it, I gotta
Yeah,
tell
go
you,
ahead.
Heads Up Baseball. So I was reading it this summer. I played in the Perfect Game League, and I'm not sure if you know what that is. And so I was
Dude, New
playing there.
York, right?
Yeah, it's out in New York. I was in
Yeah.
Batavia, New York, and so me and my roommate, he goes to George Mason University actually. And we became like best friends, and we would read books together on the bus. So we'd always bring our books together on the bus. And the one day I was reading Heads Up Baseball, threw it in the top compartment after the game, like before we left the bus, left it in the bus, and I was like a quarter of the way through. So now I'm
Yeah.
just like hinting on the edge of wanting to read the rest of it, but I haven't bought it again yet. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but hop
Dang,
into your
that's
other
a tough
categories now,
loss, man. That is a
dude.
tough loss. But hopefully somebody picks that up like a baseball guy and is like, huh. And then that starts their journey. So maybe you change your life. Who
That
knows?
honestly, I'm glad you said that because afterwards, I'm like, because we most of us take have the same bus company, like it's all those teams in that area. So I'm like, maybe I just made another guy better across
Yeah.
the aisle on the other team.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Okay, so more books. Well, like, yeah, I could go forever on books, man. Like, I my routine is like nightly reading. So reading, I like to read because of all the benefits that we know about, and I talked about what I can take away that's practical.
Hmm.
That's my big thing. And then that goes even further into like experimentation, which I'm big on. So I'm taking things that I think are practical from books and podcasts, and then I experiment with them, and then I see if they work for me. That's kind of how it works. My routine is nightly. So like I'll read before I go to sleep, which sometimes gets hard, um, with like really dense stuff. But that's a two for one because I get the reading, but also I get to relax. And like bedtime routine, reading is a huge part for me. I'll read, 20, 30 minutes before bed, and then I just pass out.
That might be what I need to do because I'm bad. I read it at night, but then I'll look at my phone, which is the worst. But
Yeah.
I got to get into the read to sleep. That's what I have to do. And I like reading in the morning sometimes as well, but I think at nighttime it just like mellows you out in a way.
Yeah. It's been, I think, I'm, I actually forgot to talk about this when you asked about sleep. Like, I think that's probably my biggest sleep tool is reading before I go to sleep. And like phones on the other side of the room or outside of the room. And like, I'm laying in my bed and reading for 20, 30 minutes and that's it. Then I pass out.
So you don't even have your phone near you. I need that.
No, 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 no.
I need
You
to do,
can't, dude. That thing is a trap, man. That thing is
bro.
a trap. You got to get that thing away from you. And I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. I have bad days, but you got to get that. You got to get that phone away.
I just got a for Christmas I got an alarm clock and it's sitting behind this camera right now, but my bed's behind me of course. So when it goes off, I have to get out of bed because sometimes like I would sit in bed, but I just need to eliminate the phone in the bed is what you're saying. So maybe
You
that's
got
what
the phone in the bed, dude?
like across. So it's plugged in, sitting on the other side.
Hey,
Yeah.
you got to move that out. You're
All
too
right. So
committed, man. You got too much going on. You're thinking about high level things. You got to get that phone out. It's
and
too
that's
close.
real because I sit there like last night I was sitting there like thinking about like this podcast and I pull my phone out and I write some notes down and it's like you're right. So next month I made a video about this as well, but the three non-negotiables per month that I create, I'm not sure if you saw that video, but pretty much essentially I create three things every month you have to do every single day. I've said this a million times, so I'm not going to ramble about it again. But this month, I created my three things, and next month we're going phone not in the bed. I'm going to write that down after this podcast. So that's per you that I'll do that. So you're going to have to halfway through the month you're going to have to text me and be like, "Are you sleeping with the phone in the bed still?"
Yeah, I've been doing that for years because I was, and I still am. I still have trouble with the snooze button. But man, I was bad, especially in undergrad. I was
Really?
bad. So yeah, that was one of my adjustments. I started reading at night and I started putting my phone either on the other side of the room so I'd get up or outside of the room. And I have the digital alarm clock too.
Nice.
Yeah. That's good.
All right, sweet. Well, I think that we talked about a lot of good stuff. I really appreciate you hopping on. This was a awesome pod. Learned a lot, talked a lot. So thank you very much, Victor.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me on and keep doing what you're doing. It's inspiring to see, a college baseball guy and a young guy trying to build something special and help athletes. So credit to you.
Appreciate you, bro.